Ladies and gentlemen of Religion Unplugged and the worldwide interwebs. My name is Joseph Holmes, and it is my distinct pleasure to introduce a very special guest. He is the co-founder and CEO of the streaming and movie filtering service VidAngel, and producer of the hit faith-based TV show about the life of Jesus, The Chosen. He is Mr. Neal Harmon. Mr. Harmon, welcome.
Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Pleasure to talk to you. I'm a big fan of a lot of your work. First of all, as a lot of people know you, but a lot of people don't know you and what you do. And a lot of people don't know VidAngel. So I was wondering if you could just talk for minutes about like what is VidAngel and what makes it distinct from other streaming services.
That's a great question. VidAngel helps you, the viewer, make entertainment good for your home, which every home is unique. And we do this in two ways. One is we allow you to skip. It's kind of like a pre-programmed remote. You know, when you're watching a show and you decide, oh, this is uncomfortable, and you try to jump for the remote, and then you try to change the channel or skip past the video. You can just set that in advance, and then it does the skip for you. So you can do this with your Netflix account or your Amazon Prime account or with HBO. You can watch your favorite shows, and you can skip over that one scene that you just don't want to experience with your grandparents or with your kids. Yeah. So that's and what people find worth skipping over is different.
Yeah.
It's unique, and it's everybody's choice. So that's what our technology does. And the second thing we do is we take the skip choices of the families and we share them with creators who partner with us, and we make better content, content that the audience finds better for their home. So Drybar Comedy and The Chosen are a couple of examples of our very first original content.
That's fantastic. So you now have this ability that you can, if you have a Netflix account or HBO account, you can link that to your VidAngel account. How does that work?
Yes, you can download the VidAngel app or go to vidangel.com right now, and within seconds or minutes, you can be watching your favorite Netflix program. You could watch House of Cards, and you could skip over, the nudity if you wanted
all the things that are in House of Cards.
Yeah, maybe you just want to watch the credits together as a family. Or you could watch Stranger Things with some of the coarser language cut out for children. And the reason that I started VidAngel is because it was a specific movie. It was I love the movie Cinderella Man, and at the time I wanted to share it with my family, and I had very young children, and I said, I love this movie. The New Yorker. No offense intended, Jonathan. The New Yorker language of the coach, the boxing coach, is just, I don't want my little 2-year-old and 4-year-old and 6-year-old repeating that to each other. So let's watch this really great story, but without them having to repeat those words. So
going off of that, VidAngel has run into its fair share of controversy because of the filtering service, and even court struck down the way that you were doing the filtering before. But there's also been some artistic concerns that people have had, where it's like, look, if you can start editing works of art like this, maybe it might violate artistic integrity. But then also, even from a religious standpoint, for me, it's like, what if I made a religious film and somebody decided to have a streaming service that edited all the religion out of it? So what are your thoughts about response to people who are concerned that artistic integrity can be compromised in a variety of ways with this kind of filtering technology?
Yeah, what a great question, Jonathan, and very well put. First off, to your point on the court ruling, that was a district court ruling. It is currently on appeal, so we'll see how that fares. But we didn't do so well in Los Angeles, and that's a big surprise. So the second thing is on the artistic integrity. I have a lot of respect for people who want to experience art exactly as the person who created the art intended it to be experienced.
Sure.
And I think that is commendable and a very, it's a very honorable way to just experience the world. So I would never, our philosophy here is we would never change an artist's right to publish what they create in the public sphere as they choose or as they intend the message to be presented. Now, as soon as you cross my threshold in my home, I feel like there's a different set of rights, and the right of the family also needs to be considered, and how they want to experience speech, and I feel like that the VidAngel solution is a really great solution, because we have all kinds of conflict happening right now in the world because of people trying to censor one another through the power of the state, whether that be efforts of the Islamic community to implement Sharia law, whether that be the efforts of the Christian community to get forward their views on protection of life, whether that be for the LGBTQ community to be able to communicate that they are who they are and they experience life as they experience it. All of these different groups are battling for the public microphone.
Right.
And there's many more. And it's a beautiful thing. But there are rights of the family and there are rights of the directors. And within the privacy of the home,
sure, we
feel like that's a very good place to put the solution, rather than with the power of China or the power of the United Arab Emirates, where a country decides, hey, this is what's allowed and this is what's not allowed.
Sure.
Some people are okay with that level of censorship. Obviously, Hollywood's okay to participate with that level of censorship. They sell movies there. They change their movies. They bow to the power of China. It gets more complicated when now that VidAngel's asking them to bow to the power of the home.
Sure.
And they don't want to give up that power. So that power has to be somewhere.
Sure.
And we feel like we found a solution that respects the creators and respects the home. I don't want to derail your interview, but I would love to give an example if there's time.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Drybar Comedy is our very first original content series.
Love it. Enjoy it very much.
Okay. It has over 2 billion views. It's probably the fastest growing stand-up comedy brand in the world. And the reason it's so successful is because we said, let's get funny comedians to come in, share with them with what families are skipping, and then let them choose how they want to present their routine. And so they all came in from all over North America. They perform here at our headquarters. The audience rates them. The ones that get rated high enough get published, and then they get bonuses if they're not skipped. And so as a result, yeah. And so it's a market. It's a market. Yeah. We don't have to tell the creator, Disney has this rule. There will be no decapitations in any of Disney movies. I can understand that rule. But we feel like feedback loops are more powerful than rules are. A feedback loop system is better than a rules-based system. So now the comedians, they come in, they perform. We had one comedian come from LA, performed. Afterwards, he saw his final cut, and he said, I worked so hard not to take the Lord's name in vain in that set, but I did it. Can you please cut this out before it gets published? So it's the total inverse, because when the rules are set, everybody's like, how far can I push this against the
Sure,
rules?
yeah.
But when there's a marketplace and they know what the rules are and they make a choice, the directors, they have their entire freedom. And then the audience has their entire freedom. And guess what? The market size ended up being bigger because both sides had their say.
That is fascinating. Well, thank you very much for that example, giving that way. That's a really interesting philosophy, and I'm very interested in understanding how Drybar comedy works. So how involved is VidAngel in sort of the creation of a lot of these original shows like Drybar comedy or The Chosen or things like that? You're distributor first of all, but then you're also in helping to produce them as well. Yes.
Yeah, we help with the funding.
Okay.
And we help with the distribution. And to the extent that it's helpful to the creators, we help the creators, but we provide them data and information.
Right.
But the creators we work with are fantastic. They do a wonderful job, and we couldn't take credit for the creative genius that is theirs. All we've done is facilitated a conversation between their audience and them. And that's what we believe we're here for.
That's fantastic. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, one of your most high profile shows, The Chosen. So they just announced they're filming the second season, which is very exciting for many of us who very much enjoy it.
Yes.
So I was wondering if you could tell briefly what initially attracted you to the project of The Chosen. And did you know or expect that it was going to be sort of the hit that it's turned out to be?
So no, the answer to the second question is no, we didn't know. We after we did Drybar and it was successful and we could see that we could compete with top Hollywood content, we said, how do we scale this concept to a bigger show, to a film or a TV show, a higher budget? And we were on the lookout for what our first project was going to be. And a mutual friend of ours, between the director and us, Matthew Ferracci, sent a short film to my brother Jeffrey, who was also a co-founder at VidAngel, and he watched this short, and he brought it to me and said, I think I know what our very first project's going to be. And I said, well, what's it about? He says, it's about Jesus. And I said, no, that's not going to be our first project. Those are, films about Jesus are for churches to make, not for-profit companies, was my first response. And he said, Neal, just watch it. This came from Matthew. You got to watch it. So I sat down and I watched this show. It's 20 minutes long, put my headphones on in the office, and I left the room. I left the world. I was there for Christ's birth. And it was looking at Christ's birth through the eyes of a shepherd who came to visit him immediately after he was born in the stable. And seeing his birth through the eyes of that shepherd, it changed me inside. It made me feel like I was part of Christ's story, because I grew up on a farm. I understood what that shepherd was going through, and I immediately knew in my heart and mind that this was a project that couldn't necessarily be done by a church. And when I pulled off my headphones, my brother Jeffrey looked at me and he said, well, what'd you think? And I said, this is why we made VidAngel. And because when we started VidAngel, we envisioned that we would create this really great product that would allow people to skip stuff. It would collect a group of people who were somewhat like-minded in terms of what kind of content they want to consume, and that we would be able to do better stories for those people, and stories that would never see the light of day out of traditional Hollywood channels. And when I saw this, I was like, this is a story that will never see the light of day. This is why we created this company. So we got really excited about it and got behind it all the way from the very beginning. But to know that it would be successful, was all conceptual at that stage. We had this big idea about crowdfunding media and how to share the data with the creators and how to connect the director to the audience. These were really big new ideas. We had no idea if they were going to work. We had a good indication from Drybar, but it has worked, and it has worked far better than we could have even dreamed.
Yeah. What's some of the most surprising sort of data point of success that you can sort of share about The Chosen?
The sheer number of people who funded season 1 was 19,000 people who funded almost $11 million. The level of engagement of the crowd, the backers,
right?
Like, if you actually measure the number of comments and the number of conversations that are occurring around this show, it dwarfs anything I've ever seen.
Wow.
Then the view through rates. I've talked to people that are part of the big 6 studios, and they've heard what our view through rates are for this show from the people.
For people who don't know, what's view through rates?
So if you start episode 1, how many of you finish episode 1? And if you finish episode 1, how many of you finish the series? Those numbers are off the charts amazing.
Wow.
And so that surprised me. The other thing that surprised me was that we had a global pandemic at the same time all this stuff was coming out. I mean, this has nothing to do with us. But it really did open up an opportunity for a lot of people who needed this, both Drybar and The Chosen, who needed a laugh or needed faith and hope during a dark time. All these things have been miraculous for us.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. No, you definitely did serve a lot of people during that time when they did need to be able to lean on faith, to be able to be there. So I saw that firsthand. One of the unique things about The Chosen also is that it is a multi-faith project in many ways. Dallas Jenkins is an evangelical Protestant. There's Catholics and Messianic Jews working on it, and you and the other founders of VidAngel are Mormons, Church of Latter-day Saints. What have been the sort of challenges or benefits that you've actually seen come from that? Because that's such a very unusual thing in the faith-based space.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been a dream of mine to work on a project with people of many faiths where we put all of our differences aside and we come together to work on something that's good for the world.
Yeah,
and that's really what's happening. Jonathan Rumi, who plays Jesus, is a very religious Catholic. There was a story just done this morning from the National Catholic Register on Jonathan and how he portrays the role of Jesus. We had Messianic Jews who helped us understand Jewish culture and take us to Israel. The view of redemption and of grace that the evangelical community brings, and also the entrepreneurialism of the evangelical community, a willingness to try new things, has been just beautiful to understand and get to know better. And now the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has a set in Utah, in Goshen, Utah, of all places, that is the biggest, the most well-researched, the most meticulously crafted recreation of Jerusalem and the sites that are relevant to Jesus's life that exist in the world. It's been there for 10 years, and now The Chosen is going to rent that set to create the next season. And so all these faiths are making their own contribution to
Yeah.
this project in their own way. And then, of course, VidAngel is owned by 8,000 Americans of all different faiths. But the two founders, we are faithful members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We love Jesus, and we love our faith in Christ, and we are super happy to figure out ways and marketing methods and everything to distribute this as far and wide, with us having zero control over the content. Like, we wouldn't have it any other way. This is an evangelical product, and we celebrate the biblical, evangelical, and fresh perspective that the scripts bring to this story. And so it's a beautiful project to work on, and I'm so grateful to be part of it.
No, that's the thing, is a lot of people worry that when you have a lot of different perspectives and, cooks in the kitchen, that what the result is going to be something that's watered down as to not offend any particular group. But the result has really been, for the show, it's that you've been able to increase the richness of it, and nobody has felt like, that they've had to water anything down or felt like anything's been watered down when they've
Well, that's because we've been very specific. It's the same philosophy we have with VidAngel, with the Drybar people. We don't tell those creators what to do.
Right. You give them information.
Yeah. We give them information. They make their own choices.
Yeah.
And we want it to be that way. And so this is truly, the content reflects Dallas's and his advisors' view of it. It reflects Dallas's view of the world, his own biblical studies, his own understanding of the gospel, his view of the gospel from an evangelical perspective. But Dallas often says, and I think this is very wise, is he says, most of the disagreements we have between faith happened after Jesus lived here. And what we don't disagree on what he actually did, who he was, what he lived, what he showed us through his example. And so if all we do is represent those stories, that can be unifying for all faiths.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now, moving on, one interesting thing has been the fact that you seem to be sort of taking the model that we've chosen of, you have a short film and then you use that as a pitch, essentially, to fundraise for a larger project and using that for other projects. We recently seeing VidAngels released the short film The Shift, which is sort of a sci-fi film that's also a short film that at the very end is like, hey, we want this to be a feature film. So I want to talk a little bit more about The Shift after this, but first I wanted to ask, is this sort of the start of a model that you want to use going forward with the short film and then the larger project that gets fundraised from it?
Yes, absolutely. It is a model, and it started right after VidAngel was sued by Disney. Disney sued VidAngel 2 weeks after VidAngel asked its own customer base if they wanted to invest in making the company bigger, better, making the product better. 2 weeks later, our customers said they were interested in investing up to $62 million.
Wow.
Into the company to grow the company. And Disney sued us 2 weeks after that, which was not a coincidence. We went back to them and said, look, now we have this existential threat. The biggest media company in the world is suing VidAngel. We need $5 million to take this to the Supreme Court. And our customers invested $10 million in less than 5 days. So twice what we were asking for, which allowed us to survive. That was 8,000 families, and we're forever grateful for those people, and that they took a stand against the establishment, the media, and said, we want something different. The day after we raised that money, I remember my brother Daniel called me and he said, hey, Neal, look at the passion that has gone into raising this money. He's like, imagine if this model was applied to media projects. And oh man, that clicked instantly for me as well. And that's when we started thinking, and we tested Drybar on our own funds.
Sure. Yeah.
But we were thinking all along, this crowdfunding model builds an audience. Your audience also supports the project. If they don't want to fund the project, then maybe it shouldn't be made. And we learned that when it comes to the crowd, the wisdom of the crowd, if you take a bottle of jelly beans and you fill it up and you ask people to guess how many jelly beans there are in it, and you ask 1,000 people and you get the median number of all their guesses, it's almost always close to, like, within a few jelly beans of being on.
I wasn't sure where you were going with the jelly bean thing, but that was a good analogy.
Yeah, or in New York, right? When Wall Street, the traders that are professional traders don't usually outperform. I mean, on the whole, they don't outperform the general crowd. The general crowd just says, "Hey, I love my iPhone. I'm going to buy Apple," or "I love my Gmail," or "I love searching on Google. I'm going to buy Google." And they buy whatever they like, and they end up outperforming the professional traders. So we say, you know what? The crowd is going to, over time, outperform the elites in Hollywood. So we want this to be a model. So you're very astute in noticing that, and yes, it is a model, and we intend to continue with it.
Very exciting. So then talk a little bit about the shift that now, what attracted you guys to the project? How did you get involved with making it, etc.?
So the shift was another one of those experiences where we had hundreds of submissions of people who are interested in getting their content out there. But we watched this project and we said, oh, this is unique. It's different. It is a totally different take on faith. It's not really faith. It's sci-fi, but it's retelling the story of Job. So I mean, it's so interesting, the Brock Heasley's take on this. We were fascinated by the take on it, and also with the emotion that he had created. He clearly has talent. And we were excited about that project, so we thought we'd give it a shot and see what the crowd thinks of it.
Yeah. Well, so give us a little bit of a short rundown of what the shift is, brief sort of synopsis.
Yeah, you bet. So the shift is it's a 15-20 minute short film. It's available on VidAngel right now. You can watch it, and it's meant to be a full-length feature film, but it tells the story of a man who gets into a car accident, and when he wakes up, the person who wakes him is Satan. And they have these conversations with each other as though they were new acquaintances on the street. And Satan comes across as very friendly, as just a regular Joe type of guy, but then he increasingly becomes more and more controlling throughout the thing, and you can see, and then Satan proceeds to tell how he sowed seeds of discord throughout humanity, and it's all based off of sci-fi.
Yes.
It's not based off of scripture,
no.
But I think the concepts of prayer are there. The fact that you're dealing with Satan versus good versus evil, God versus Satan, those kinds of things are in the story, but it's a very sci-fi concept, and I can't explain it. You're going to hear that and say, that sounds really like a dumb idea.
No, definitely everyone should watch the short film, because it's a very clever way of melding sort of a faith-based story and science fiction in ways that have not really been done with Christianity in this way before. Like you've had things like The Matrix that sort of meld sort of Buddhist ideas or Star Wars that meld Buddhist ideas of lack of attachment with sort of a sci-fi concept like the Force or the Matrix.
Yep.
And this sort of does the same thing with more Judeo-Christian sort of faith ideas.
And it's a lot. It kind of reminds me of The Chosen in some ways, because when I first heard of The Chosen, I'm like, another TV series about Jesus. Okay, this is going to be, this is not.
We've seen that before. We've seen how that's.
Yeah, we've seen how that's turned out. And then once you watch it, you say, "Oh, I get it."
Yeah.
I had a similar experience with the shift myself personally.
Yeah,
The crowd gets to make the final call on that one, and we're excited about that project.
very cool. So, shifting gears a little bit once again, Hollywood has long sort of realized that there's a faith-based market, and but has struggled sort of with various attempts, like with Noah and Exodus, Gods and Kings, and some of their own Fox creating their own faith-based product, have struggled with the question of how you actually get how you actually or successfully tap into the markets. The market actually likes what you're putting out there for them. Why do you think that they have had such mixed results actually appealing to the faith-based market that they've sort of been trying to tap into with some of their projects?
Um, I think it's a broken feedback loop.
Okay, sure, that makes sense.
So Hollywood creates about almost 3/4 of their movies are rated R,
Sure,
and 1/4 are family friendly. But 3/4 of their revenue come from the family friendly movies,
sure,
and about a quarter comes from the rated R movies. And why is that? Why is there this disconnect between what the creators like to make and what general audiences want to see?
sure.
And we think that the broken feedback loop is that the creators, there are these lockdown distribution channels that the theaters and the studios have had with the theatrical market for decades, and so they get to publish whatever they choose, and like 98% of the revenue in the theaters is coming from the big six studios. Like there's
Right.
there's no way into that market except through their door. And so, but then once you're inside their door, a lot of these creators are looking to their peers for validation
Sure.
rather than the market, because the market's already locked down. And so
Right.
they go and they look at the Oscars, and they say, oh, who won at the Oscars and what did they do? And so I
Sure.
want to do something more like that. And as a result, the system becomes more and more insular, more and
Sure.
more into itself, rather than reflecting the larger audiences that are there. Um, so the best analogy is, there's a guy who was one of the tallest guys who ever lived. He had a broken pituitary gland,
Hmm.
and his pituitary gland didn't quite work, and he just kept growing and growing and growing, and he grew himself to death.
Wow.
And we feel like Hollywood has a broken feedback loop. And so it's growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, but eventually they're getting so far away from what the audience wants that they don't even realize it because they live in their own bubble.
Sure.
So when Hollywood comes and they make Exodus,
Gods and
Gods and Kings, or they make Noah, or they make them big,
yeah.
they're impressive. They have all the elements that a Hollywood movie should have, that Hollywood does so well. That's one thing we've learned, is that, those unions, the actors unions, the directors unions, the craft that the Hollywood people have learned to make over the decades, it's really unmatched.
Yeah.
And they do that really well, but then the actual underlying story and the underlying thread of faith is just void of the content because they're too disconnected, and so
Sure.
they miss the mark. Whereas with The Chosen, it's created by the people who believe, and it's funded by them,
Right.
and whoever has the purse strings makes the rules. And guess what? If the faithful audience funds the project, then the project gets to remain faithful.
No. I gotta say, your track record so far in this interview with analogies is really is 10 out of 10 so far.
I hope I'm. I hope I.
No, it's like
Hope
you
they're
think,
helpful.
okay, you're gonna connect Hollywood to like a giant person. It's like, I'll see where this goes. Oh, okay, I understand the analogy. That's good.
I'm glad you're able to follow it.
Yeah. So, gonna close to wrapping up the interview here, but I wanted to a couple more things. One is, so if one is sort of a practical thing, and the other is sort of a heart thing. So, I'll go with the hard thing first. Like you've been working at VidAngel, and you talked a little bit about this, but you've worked a little bit at VidAngel for for many years now. And I wanted to give you a chance to talk more in depth about what is it about VidAngel and projects you're working on that makes you want to get up every day and do this again.
Oh, it's the 8,000 people who invested in us and the 19,000 people who invested in the Chosen. By
Hmm.
by far, that's what it is. It's those people. We've been through some tough times, and I'm not sure we would have made it through it without those people's support. Um, I think the other thing that keeps me going and gets me up every day is because I feel like that we and the movement that has become VidAngel, and it's not me. It's a growing group of people. Um, we felt helpless to affect our culture for so long, and we see this vision of we're making a difference.
Hmm.
We can have an impact,
Hmm.
and um, we're building a better world for our children and our grandchildren, and that makes me excited. Um, because I really think, I mean, the people who tell the stories of the world um, guide its future,
Hmm.
and the world needs to have more hope and faith and redemption, and we're going to do something about it.
That's very exciting. So this is your chance to pitch and plug. If people want to, support what you're doing, support, just in general VidAngel, but then also, specific projects that they really like and are excited about. Um, this is our two-part question. One, how can they do that? How can they support the projects they're excited about? How can they support VidAngel? And two, can you tease any other projects that you have waiting in the wings that haven't been announced yet? That last question may be a short no, and that's fine. But that's why it's a two-part
No,
question.
I'll give you something. I'll give you something,
Okay.
Jonathan. You've been a good interviewer. First one, just go download the VidAngel app and start watching. These creators get paid based off of how much you watch their stuff. You can also go to vidangelstudios.com and check out The Shift and
Mm.
and back that project. There will be many more coming soon. So
Mm.
we'd love for you to get involved, for you to be part of the story. Um, now, as far as just a little hint for the future, so there's nothing better than telling the story of the King of Kings, or helping to distribute that. But he's also the author of liberty, right? We know from the scriptures, and if you can imagine a combination between um, the Magic School Bus and the educational components of the Magic School Bus and the humor of The Simpsons as a series. You're giving me that furrowed look. I know that a lot of Christians have a love-hate relationship with The Simpsons, but
I'm
The
intrigued.
Simpsons are funny. They're funny.
Yeah.
It's good writing, and we've got a group of creators who have excellent comedic writing, who love the principles of freedom, and we got a really fun show coming about that.
That's exciting. No, but believe me, my furrowed brow is not. I'm not negative about this. I am quite intrigued. Um, can you tell me when you might expect an announcement might come?
Around that, no, I can't, because this is
No.
our philosophy is that the relationship is between the creators and their audiences, and so this is their relationship, not
Cool.
not ours. So the creator will put that forward when they're ready.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for this interview. You've been a wonderful interviewee, and very much excited to see what comes next for you guys.
Yeah, so are we.